And we're live. Good evening, good afternoon, good night, and welcome to another scene in New York by Night, the Mage video. This is a follow-up scene to the scene in Shit Narnia, where Jericho, Dimi, and Jade meet up in one of the back rooms of the Othanatoi Chantry, debriefing, for lack of a better word. As the three gather around a table, Dimi disappears for a little, and you see him coming back and carrying in one of his hands something that looks like a cage that has a piece of cloth over it, and putting it on the table. He just stands up from the chair and leans against the wall and lights up a cigarette.
In front of Jericho happens to be a map of Queens, one of the neighborhoods actually. He's going to go ahead and start to point out different landmarks that he's sort of discovered within the dark world, using the street map as sort of a reference point, geographic or otherwise. Goes ahead and circles the furniture store here. Goes up plays and puts an X onto St. Michael's Chapel over here. Starts to make and label different odds and notes and different landmarks on the map, saying that, okay, geographically, the Dark World is pretty much the same as it is in this world. You'll see the same street signs, same street names as well, same geographics, same buildings, same parks. It's all pretty much a reflection of the world as it is right now. So what that means is that we can start to plan ahead for the next excursion down in there.
You see Dimi just looking at Jericho. Have a little patience, man. We just came back, and there is something more important that we have to settle, first of all.
Yes.
Jade sips from a cup of tea she's made. She's still feeling a little queasy from what she witnessed.
Dimi just goes over to the cage and pulls out the sheet, and you can see two pigeons that, for all intents and purposes, could be identical twins for all you know. And he drags the cage in front of Jade. So Jade, what do you see here?
Two pigeons.
And why do you think I brought them here?
Well, you said there's something more important to take care of first. And you brought them to me, so,
Let's cut to the point. Can you make pigeons too?
possibly. I'd need a recipe.
I'm joking. And he opens the cage and pulls the two pigeons out, and you can see one on one of his index fingers, the other's on another. Do you see the difference between those two?
I'm gonna make a perception check. Yeah, just barely.
And what do you think this difference is? You could potentially notice with two successes that one of them is a bit more lively than the other, but just a bit.
One of them has more energy than the other one.
Which means that the other is...
Either sick or older.
And that means that it potentially needs to...
It needs to be put out of its misery.
Dimi reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small bag. You can hear the jingle of coins in it. And he reaches inside the bag and pulls out an old Greek coin, an oboloi, and puts it in front of Jade. Toss it.
She picks up the coin and tosses it into the air. Lets it fall back on the table.
And let's just go odd and even over here. Odd, you get the right one. Even, you get the wrong one. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
It's even. So you get a certain feeling that that old one might be the one that needs to die.
Okay.
So which one of these two needs to die?
Jade will, she'll look between the two birds and just sort of lightly stroke the back of the neck and head of the older one. This one.
Just because he's older? Just because he's looks sickly?
It's a feeling I get.
And do you trust that feeling?
She ponders for a moment. Yes, I do.
And you see Dimi focusing, grabbing his prayer bead with the other fingers that he has free. I'm not gonna roll for this, but using his entropic sight and sharing his perception with Jade, you could see that the old one actually needs to live because he's just old. The other one, that's a lot lively, is lively because he has a very, very contagious disease that can't be carried over to humans, but still. Now you see what I mean?
I do.
And he hands the livelier pigeon to Jade. You know what you have to do.
She holds the bird in her hands and looks at it for a moment. Yeah, I do. She brings the bird up almost so that it's nose to nose with her. I'm sorry, but it's for the good of everybody. And she grips its head with one hand and snaps its neck.
Dimi just puts out his cigarette, takes Jade's palm, and puts the obol into her palm. Keep it. You see him straightening his back, getting a very, very official tone. Jade Valentine, I, Demetrius Fotis, of the Euthanatoi, of House Hierokthenoi, hereby take you on as my apprentice until the day you awaken and join us as our sister.
Jada bows. Thank you. I will not waste your time. I will learn well from you, and I will awaken.
Did you do the dishes?
Do you really want me to do the dishes?
That was not what I asked. Did you do the dishes?
No, I have not done the dishes yet.
Did you wash the windows?
No, I have not washed the windows.
Did you sweep the floors?
I have not swept the floors.
You're learning already. Over here, with the Othanatoi, we all carry our own weight. We don't need our apprentices for housekeeping.
You can see Jade looks visibly uncomfortable and will actually grab her tea again and sip from it.
So officially, you're one of us. You're more than welcome to learn how to fight from me. The ways of the ways of life from Jericho, the ways of our people from Assam. But you'll have to answer to me. I'm an asshole, I know. But I will not break your fingers for not disassembling your phone. You answer for your own mistakes. But only when your mistakes harm the wheel. I care little for dirty dishes, I care even less for dirty windows. I enjoy my darkness.
Jade nods.
And you see Demi putting his hand on her head and just ruffling her hair. Congrats, kid. Now you're a death mage.
She smiles a little. Not quite yet. Death sorcerer, maybe.
Okay, you're the baby death mage. Now on to real stuff. Demi just sits back at the table. You were saying, Jericho?
Okay. Dark World, Dark World, Dark World. Now we have a name for it. Not sure if it's the official one we're going with, but Purgatory definitely sounds much more classier. Apparently we have about two different interesting people over there. One being the Reverend of St. Michael, and the other one being Auntie Boo. If there are other powers around, they haven't made themselves known, or they're just being a lot more subtle. Although, with the creepy crawly that seem to be crawling around, who knows exactly what's back there.
Okay, so what do we know so far? That Auntie Boo is not alive. So she might be a spirit. A fairy man. Or fairy woman, actually.
She could simply be covering up her life aura.
She'd have to be stronger than the both of us. Which
think
is not
she's
impossible,
stronger.
yet very unlikely.
I think she is. She has a great many deal of followers surrounding her, and the fact that she was able to manifest her doorway once or twice was particularly powerful. I can't do that.
You do realize she could be one of us, right?
Yeah, she could be awakened.
What? If I think of a certain thing and I tell you the name Mad Zimbabwe, does it ring any bells, Jericho?
Zimbabwe.
Mad Zimbabwe.
Mud Zimbabwe. No, I don't know that, actually. At least not at the top of my head.
There are African cousins. They're Othanatoi, but like you're Aided, and I'm Hierocthenoi, and Assam's Chakravanti, they are another house of ours. They like to call their gathering the Court of Ghosts. Not unlike what we've seen at Auntie Boo's.
Interesting. What do you know? If we assume that Auntie Boo could be this part of this order, what do we know about them?
They are Othanatoi. They're really good with spirits. They deal a lot more with spirits than our other traditions. She might be one of them that got stuck.
Okay, okay. This different realm. I know that on some level you do need the sphere of spirits to at least transverse between them.
Yes, you need thorough knowledge of cheat in order to step sideways, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
But we have your wardrobe, which is useful, and I still believe, strongly believe, that we just ended up in a dark corner of Tartarus.
It's very, very possible, very, very possible. Tartarus is not necessarily a realm of suffering, it's just a collection point, if I remember correctly, that particular myth.
But it is, for all intents and purposes, more of a purgatory than what the Christians believe that hell is.
It's not a fiery pit, it's just where you can go. It's more of a dark cellar than a fiery pit.
Not to mention the fact that she accepted the coins. They might have not been obole, but she accepted the coins. You do know about the ferryman. You do know why people put coins around dead bodies when they bury them.
Yes. It's to go ahead and pay the ferryman his toll to cross that river.
Well, we didn't cross a river, but no harm came to us. And correct me if I'm wrong, you ended up pretty bruised and pretty battered the first times you went in there.
The first time I went in there through that wandering portal, I was actually pretty well off. It was the Reverend who went ahead and helped me stay out of most of the danger. What can I say? Every time I've been there, I'm not the one who's been hurt the most. That happens to be one of the Akashis up there right now.
Is Harold okay?
Harold's situation is stable. He seems to be recovering a little bit.
He recovered and then he got nearly killed again.
Yeah. The first time he went into the world without me, he sustained an injury. He was able to recover. But this one was particularly more aggravated. I looked over the wounds afterwards, and, well, it didn't look like he had been in a huge fight. His spirit was very much weakened. It was like his heart was giving out, refusing to beat.
I told you time and time again, Jericho, learn how to heal in combat.
Jericho will just go ahead and stare into you and simply say, "It's something I'm working on."
And it takes time.
I'm stepping into the medical community around New York, Manhattan, that is. That's how I'm going to learn. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen within the next few months, unfortunately. I'm going to be taking the long way around.
Why not just simply learn the ways of our kind and learn the ways of prana?
I want to learn the ways of prana. That's not how I learn. I learn by examining the physical form, the anatomy of a body. I've gone through many dissection. That's how I learned the first spheres of life. That's how I keep learning life. Now, that may be the long way around, but that's how I'm beginning to understand it.
We'll have our ways and our approaches. I see life as simpler. It is easier for me, it comes natural. My mother's one of the best healers around. I could legitimately say it's in the blood.
That might be true, but I'm more interested in the transition. The actual states from life to death, from life to simple dead matter, and even beyond.
Your heart stops beating, you stop breathing, you die. It's that simple.
It's true. You and I know. Our eyes are open. We've seen other worlds. We've seen places where our consciousness can go to afterwards. Just because the body stopped doesn't mean that you're not still here in some way or form.
Yes, you're talking about the souls that don't want to be pushed on the wheel.
Sometimes. Think about it like this. There are plenty of cases where you have a person experiencing an out-of-body experience when the body has stopped, just refused to start, became inert matter. However, the spirit still hung around. The body was devoid of life, but the spirit was able to see around itself, and then eventually come back into the body, revitalize that matter, become life again.
Fair enough. I don't want to tamper with the spirits more than I have to. It is a bit against our way.
Possibly. Possibly. I'm just very, very interested in the state change. You know what? This is a little bit deeper conversation than I wanted to get into, but Jericho's going to go ahead and walk to the refrigerator and take out what appears to be a beer bottle for himself. Look over to me and say, "You want one?"
No, I'll pass. I need to focus on things and try to find out who this anti-boo is.
That's what you want to do right now? Find out who Anti-Boo is?
Find out who anti-boo is, find out how to work with my new apprentice, because in case you didn't notice, she's my first one. Find out why we let the fucking Akashic roam around our chantry and poke our nose into our business.
Yeah, that was probably not the smartest move on my part. I told them that I didn't know him. I was only a friend that I met like twice.
War of the Himalayans, decimating our numbers.
I know. I didn't tell them to let Harold in willy-nilly.
Okay?
I'm just
good
glad
to-
there isn't a greater number of Akashi around here. Otherwise, they'd be pretty pissed off with one of us keeping one of their number.
Pack him, send him to the temple.
Where's
To
the
their
temple?
temple. To their temple.
I don't know where that temple is.
I've heard of it. I know there's a chantry of the Akashic somewhere, a temple of something around the city.
Think Harold knows? Because if he does, I'm just going to go ahead and slap him awake and tell him to give them a goddamn call.
Fair enough. Not to mention the fact that us having one in the chantry is risk enough. Okay. I can understand the orphan. Which reminds me. What's the deal with that guy?
Oh, reality hates him.
Really hates all of us.
For one reason or another, I just hate him especially. He's some sort of blood mage, from what I can gather. Blood is one of his focuses. For one reason or another, he's chosen the most ridiculous and idiotic one to go ahead and focus on. He has a problem with recovering himself naturally. He's almost died on me at least 3 different times.
Perfect material for you to learn how to heal.
I I've got a vitality to me. It sort of ebbs and flows. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. He's just like a black hole. Nothing helps him.
Then nudge his fate so to keep him out of harm.
Well, that is the plan. To keep him out of harm. He does have a lot of potential. And I'd hate to see that kid just go ahead and get himself snuffed out. He wants to escape the world.
Where are the Verbena when you need them?
I don't know. If there were Verbena around, I'd make friends with them very, very quickly.
By the way, are there any other mages that you're aware of?
There was a Cecil. We've seen a very, very interesting individual within the Dark World one time. Name of Adam Soga, I believe.
Never heard of the guy?
I've never heard of the guy either, but he seems to not be affiliated with anybody else.
So he's another orphan.
Very, very potentially. He seemed to No. He seemed to have a certain archaic stance about him, as if he was not entirely with the modern age. Now, you could argue that that's just sort of the mysticism that revolves around archives. With him, it seemed much more pronounced, much more unnatural the way he stood.
So he's a marauder.
He didn't seem insane, or at least if he had some sort of madness, it didn't make itself manifest quite yet.
I still say that we need to join our forces. Form a little cabal. Could be useful.
Yeah, with the kind of things that Sam keeps telling me about how we need to be a little bit more careful about how we're not the only ones out here. Yeah, definitely.
Not to mention the fact that we're all good individually. We're not great individually. Yeah. I'm not the smoothest talker, you're not the best fighter. Together, we're quite a team.
It's true, it's true.
Put Azazel in the mix, we're even better. Put Sam in the mix, we're even better. Not to mention the fact that if we actually wrap our heads around how to do a proper ritual and combine our forces like the Hermetics do, we might actually be able to get rid of some of our troubles.
Yeah, that is true, like these names that keep popping up.
Did you manage to talk to Remy lately?
Yes, I've talked to Remy.
What did he say?
He said that he wasn't the one giving out these names.
Auntie Boo gave me a name. I think we should investigate that guy.
Definitely. We now know that this name is coming from a person, and not just completely out of the blue.
One last thing, Jericho, about that symbol. You saw that symbol on the bullets at the church.
Yeah, I did. It seemed to have gone ahead and inscribed themselves onto the tombstones and such. I went ahead and took a few pictures of them just to make sure.
Did you ask the Reverend about that sign?
The Reverend seemed ignorant.
Like most do. Wonderful. And you said that the church exists in our world as well.
Yes, the physical structure, the architecture, completely and utterly the same.
Did you check to see if the sign is there?
I went ahead and Actually, I have not gone ahead and done an actual look about. I went ahead and researched it online and in the libraries, exactly the history of St. Michael's Church.
And what did you find out?
I found out that it's been around for at least perhaps a century. In the early 1920s, 30s, I believe, it was some sort of well-to-do establishment, and it seemed to have a very, very big problem with. Actually, you know what? Give me a second. Jericho will slightly excuse himself as he is going to go ahead and walk up to his own room, in fact. He is going to go ahead and come back. When he comes back, he'll have with him a portfolio. At which point he goes ahead and spreads the portfolio over the map of that particular neighborhood in Queens and simply says, right, there you go. Established 1920s as a white-only institution. Early in its history, there was a lot of friction between the black and white communities. There was a prominent demonstration of a burning cross, as well as several lynchings. 2 men, 1 woman. Seems as if in the civil rights movement, the church was very, very quick to go ahead and reverse its opinions. Very much quick to embrace the movement against the violence and oppression. The current reverend that we see in the Dark World has no, pretty much has no contemporary or no peer in our version of Queens. It seems to simply be a person, a reverend that finds himself within the Dark World.
Wait, there were pressures between the whites and the blacks.
Yeah, early in the church's history, before the civil rights movement.
Don't you see a similarity here?
Explain.
Antibu doesn't like the reverend.
And she seems a bit urbane.
So, am I crazy here, or do I see a recurrence?
I would suggest that if we were looking at some sort of animosity against the reverend, and we think that the church's history is a connection, we look into the lynchings of these people, this 2 men and 1 woman. Now, it may be a little bit harder to find out the personal bibliographies of these people. They may not have been as detailed as they ought to be, but the lynchings will definitely be in the histories. They'll be presented quite prominently.
Jericho, I have a pretty decent idea. How could we keep in contact from one world to the other? Because I'm thinking phones might not work.
How can we keep in contact?
Or actually, we should ask Sam. She's pretty good at technology. Maybe she can rewire the phone to work.
Possible. It's possible. We can definitely set up a short-range communication device. Hell, we can even set up a small radio station on the other side to go ahead and relay messages for us pretty damn easily. Cell phones will probably not work within the Dark World simply because the cell towers will not be available. We'd be looking at short-hand radios for it.
You know what I say? I say we go and investigate the church on our side. The both of us. Or actually the 3 of us if we can find Azazel. See what we can find. Comb the place.
Go talk to Harold. Harold was the one person who did a quick run-by of the place, if I remember correctly. Here's what we've been able to tell out about from the just talking to the local parishes, looking at the more recent history.
What did I say about dealing with the Akashics?
He was the first mage that I met in the city.
It's an honest mistake. You don't need to indulge in it.
He hasn't done me wrong quite yet. He seems rather simple.
Okay.
What do you know about Harold? Tell me your perspective on it.
He's a good kid. I met him a couple of times. He's a good kid. He's a decent fighter. The problem is that he doesn't see or respect the ways of our tradition. No one of the Akashic does. That's why we fought in the first place. That's why we had to split our ways. That's how the Chakravanti met the Aedid and the Hieroxenoi and the other death mages. I know we're a council now, and I know we buried the hatchet a long time ago. That doesn't mean that we should be friendly with them out of all the traditions. I don't particularly like the choristers either, if it makes you feel better.
No. It's not that I'm trying to be any sort of friendly with the Akashi. He was the one man involved with it when I started on this project.
Fair enough. I say we're rubbing elbows too much with those guys, but anyhow. Getting back to what I was saying. The three of us, or the four of us, if we drag Jade along now that she's officially my apprentice, we'll have to investigate the church on our side. After that, I say we contact Sam. The two of you go through the portal to the church. Me and Assam go to the church in this world. We'll see if one thing influences the other. Writing on the ground, tipping over a tombstone, knocking on a brick, regardless.
If you want to go ahead and see how one world influences the other, you can go to the furniture store, actually. That's where we're coming in and out of in the dark world. Just this address here. It'd be a lot safer for those of us on the dark world side.
Yes, the problem is that you said that the church is a safe haven and a place of greater power than the furniture store. That's why I said the churchyard, not the store.
Fair enough, but I think I have a theory about why it's so much stronger than any place else. The last time we were there, in fact, any time you go to the dark world, and there's going to be a disturbance, a great big disturbance. On that St. Michael's Chapel happens to be an air siren. That air siren goes ahead and blasts out a emergency call. It's very, very distinctive. If you ever hear it, you'll be chilled to the utter bone. That siren gathers everyone of the congregation into the chapel, where they go ahead and perform their own service. It's the faith of the people, that desperate, desperate faith of the people that makes it so strong. And what makes it weird is on our side, where everything's fine and calm and handy-dandy, St. Michael's doesn't have that great amount of faith or resonance to it. It's actually one of the more liberal and one of the more lacking parishes around. Everybody else looks at St. Michael's and simply says that that place doesn't have enough faith, that there's no devotion in it. Well, in the
And
dark
maybe
world,
it doesn't. Then maybe it doesn't come down to fate. Maybe it can. It comes down to other influences. There could be a place of power there. There could be a place of transit there. Who knows? Maybe if I drag another pigeon and end its life over there, maybe it pops up on the other way.
it's definitely possible. If you ever took a second to actually get a gut feeling from these shades in the dark world, you realize that there is just so much pain and suffering and desperation there.
Yes, okay, I see it. So there are souls that can't pass through. It is our duty. It is our duty as servants of the wheel to make sure they can pass through. That's why we need to investigate this.
They're definitely people, and they're definitely stuck there. One solution that me and Harold came up with and dismissed rather quickly was trying to transport the congregation of St. Michael's to the real world. We already know that's not going to work. The people in the dark world, they're dark reflections. They're not native to Earth.
Fair enough. We need to think about this. We need to sleep on it and see what's the best course of action. And the last thing I wanted to ask you before I'm gonna go back to bed, the skull I gave you, is it fixed?
The skull was used in a ritual.
I beg your pardon?
The skull was used in a ritual.
What ritual?
Jericho just goes ahead and he lays that particular beer bottle, half drink, on the kitchen counter. He goes ahead and starts to lean over the table, the portfolio of the church, as well as the map of Queens, and goes ahead and hunches over and says, "Do you know what happened to Miss Smith Arthur's spirit after she left us?"
It went on the wheel like all spirits do. Most spirits do, at least.
Jericho goes ahead and shakes his head. It was prevented from doing as such.
By?
Her spirit was there. Her spirit was right in front of the doorway, right in front of the light, that would lead her on to rejoin with the wheel. But something went ahead and grabbed her and dragged her down into the dark world. I shouldn't say dark world, into the underworld. She was dragged into the underworld, where she was thrown onto a rack, and parts of her were hacked off. Her identity, her mind, her sanity, her love, her consciousness, just completely hacked and butchered off.
Then maybe it was not her place to reincarnate.
Maybe it was not our place to take her.
The fates decided she should have died. She died. And let's not forget that she did not die from our hands. We are guiltless in this matter. But you have not answered my question. What did you do with the skull, Jericho?
What do you want with the skull?
I want it back. I want it fixed. I need it. I need the complete skeleton.
Why do you need this skeleton of Miss McLaughlin?
For a personal matter.
Yes, I agree. It is a personal matter.
And it shall remain on a need-to-know basis. Do you need to know? No. Then you will not know.
Very well. Then I do not need to know.
I want that skull back fixed.
For a personal matter.
Yes.
Does this have something to do with the Euthanatos tradition? Does it have anything to do with this particular chantry? Does it have anything to do with the greater work of the wheel?
Yes, yes, and yes.
I'm sorry, but I don't know that. All I know is that when we desperately needed to leave that place, when you desperately needed to leave the MacArthur residence, you were there cutting up the carpet to carry the body out, and we still, at least I still do not understand why.
Did any harm come to anyone for lingering?
Yes,
To whom and in what matter?
those twins. Those twins got to ride in the back of the van with their dead mother wrapped in a carpet.
Nothing that cannot be fixed.
Are you fixing it right now?
Do I have to?
Do you want the skull?
Yes.
Then,
I'm not gonna babysit and or barter for something that I laid claim upon, okay? The children need to be taken care of by someone who has experience, namely the choristers or the akashics or whoever wants to play goody-goody two-shoes. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you, Jericho. I want that skull. I want it fixed. I want it back. I care little for what happens to those children as well, as long as they're in safe hands.
the children got returned. I left them for the authorities to find and simply walked away. Because at the end of the day, we had absolutely no reason to take those children at all. They'll be taken care of by wealth, by money, by friends of the family. They did not need to be taken from that house. We did not need to bring them anywhere and draw extra heat on us.
Yes, leave them with the trauma of their dead mother. Leave them with the trauma of shots being fired in their house and being orphaned at such a young age and having both of their parents taken from them. Leave them with traumas.
At least they're going to be taken care of. I don't see myself, Asaisal, or you taking care of them anytime soon. And I do not know of these other people that you speak of. The celestial choristers, the hermetics. What would they care? Why would they care about twins? Those twins.
Because it's for the greater good, and because it's not in the nature of the Council of the Nine Traditions to have collateral damage.
Which begs me the question, why in the world did we not try to confirm any of this? At least talk to these people before we went ahead and made them orphans.
You wanted me to talk with 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds or however old those children were and try to explain to them the concept of the wheel, the philosophy that has kept us alive for the past 2,000 years.
They're 10-year-olds, and no, I'm talking about any of the choristers. Why didn't you call them beforehand? So that we would actually have a guaranteed place to bring them.
Because
If, in fact, we wanted to take them.
Because I don't have their fucking number.
That was the problem. We weren't prepared to take them, but we did anyway.
And because those children had a goddamn Ouija board, in case you forgot.
The Ouija board was a toy.
It shows potential.
It shows curiosity.
It shows a certain kind of curiosity specific to people who usually end up awakening.
It shows grief. It shows grief for their dead father, that they're still trying to reach out and connect to them. And I am very, very glad I am not able to contact that particular spirit. I am very, very glad that that spirit actually made it back to the wheel.
I am not here to be preached to, Jericho. I want that skull. I want it back. And you haven't answered my question. What the fuck did you do with it? Dimi just sits up and grabs something to eat. The counter.
Like I said, I used it in a summoning ritual to summon Miss MacArthur, and it's currently in a safe place.
And you did that with whose permission?
My own.
You used one of my items in one of your rituals without my permission. And that works because
you can claim it all you want. All I saw of that dead body was a hindrance, an unnecessary hindrance to an otherwise maybe a kinky operation, but at least one that was still going, still moving, because we stopped and had to take that body. Every single authority of New York PD was bearing on our asses, and it was only the fates that decided that we should continue on. I don't know about you, but every time we rely on the fates to bail us out, it's one more favor that we can't call upon later.
we don't call on favor for the fates. We act as the fates tell us to act. And the fates take care of us.
I don't want to rely on the fates too much, as long as I'm a little bit clever about it. I let the fates go ahead and take care of things that I'm not going to see. Because at the end of the day, yes, the fates are going to go ahead and guide us. Yes, the fates are going to go ahead and cover up little blemishes, little stupidities, little unknowns that we're not going to be able to account for. For myself, I want to know what I'm getting into. I want to have an exit strategy, and yes, there's never going to be a perfect operation. There's always going to be that random chance. But you know what? I'd rather not too heavily lean on random chance to get me out.
There's no such thing as random chance when it comes to us. The force of random is the force of entropy. The force of entropy is our specialty. We don't rely on randomness, because randomness does not exist for us. We nudge the chances in our favor, and the fates take care of us for doing the work that needs to be done. Not to mention the fact that if I hadn't waited and took the body, we wouldn't have any idea on who shot those bullets, because the bullet that ended up in our car was mine, because I can't shoot blindly and actually hit something.
Fate guides us. I can't argue with that point. But fate shouldn't be a crutch for us either.
Fate is not a crutch. We rely on it, and it relies on us, and that's how the wheel turns.
We should not rely on fate. We should help move it.
We push the wheel, and the wheel pushes us. That's how it keeps in motion.
We should be pushing the wheel for the world. We should be pushing the wheel towards different objectives. We don't need to rely on the wheel. If we start to rely on the wheel, then we can't rely on ourselves to do anything.
We need to rely on the wheel for guidance and on ourselves for our abilities to help the wheel. I did what I think was best, and it came up with results. If I can't trust you with a goddamn skull without you going around and poking the bear willy-nilly, and finding someone who's half decent when it comes to fixing things without super glue, I'm not gonna entrust you with objects anymore in the first place and have it done myself.
Fair enough. If you want the object, if you want the skull claimed, fine. You'll find it in the morgue, labeled under evidence, MacArthur. You'll find the bullets there too.
Are all the pieces of the skull there?
As much as was recovered.
We took the whole damn goddamn body. All the pieces should be there.
You would think. But sometimes brittle bones go ahead and impact with that particular slug, and sometimes pieces just get chipped off. What do you want with the skull? What do you want with the body? Why in the world do you endanger us so?
It's not a body, it's a skeleton. First of all. Second of all, I have my own things to do. I don't go around inquiring about what you do in your garden.
If it was to endanger you, I would assume that you would come and ask me.
Remember the fact that I fainted?
Mm-hmm.
I fainted so you can have your garden. In the middle of a cemetery, in the middle of a park.
And I brought you back.
Yeah. The backlash could have hit harder.
Could've, woulda, should've.
Okay? We got out of that house with evidence and without any of us being harmed and sustaining unhealable damage. I'm not gonna argue with you. I was right. You were wrong. I want my skull back. And, you know, I hate to do this, but I will do it.
You took a risk, you got lucky, and you've already beaten me for that.
Because in the middle of a mission, you decided to get out of a speeding vehicle.
That was not during the mission. That was the aftermath, when we were all trying to figure out where the hell we were going to leave those children.
If you're going to question authority in the middle of a mission, when we have the police on our back and a body and 2 children in the back seat, maybe field missions are not for you, Jericho.
Like I said, that was not during the mission. That was afterwards, when we were almost scot-free. Did I argue with you or backtalk to you as I was digging up the carpet right beside you?
No, you were talking back to me when I decided that we should not bring 2 children to the Temple of the Wheel, a goddamn casino.
And yet, there they were upstairs when I came back.
Because all other chances were used up.
Because we didn't actually prepare to take them before the mission happened. One simple call.
I will give you that preparation is needed when you do missions, but when it comes to working together, we need to work together with the other traditions as well. That's why I say call upon the numbers, find the others in the city, not the archmages, not the elders of each tradition. Have all mages unite and be able to contact one another because we all have our different specialties.
I'm not arguing against that. In fact, I think that's a very, very fantastic idea. The problem was, if we were going to do that, we should have done that before we were knee-deep in the operation. And when we were knee-deep in the operation, did I ever go ahead and contradict you? I went ahead, I got those children. I brought them downstairs. I didn't argue with you when Asaisal was talking to that woman. And afterwards, when you were trying to recover the body, I was right there with you with my own knife cutting up that carpet.
Right. You are right. We should prepare better before we head out. But we should not go rushing back to our own when we know that there are people out there that can do some jobs better than we.
Fair enough. It's all about identifying those particular individuals before we need them, not when we do.
It has always been a rule of thumb for me. You need children protected, you go to the choristers. You need knowledge, you go to the hermetics. You need healing, you go to the verbena.
Let's try not to need to help children. Let's do that. Like I said, we didn't need to take those kids. Not from their beds. Not from their home. I have never.
If things would have gone right, we could have taken them to the choristers. The choristers would have fixed their traumas, and we would have been on our way as fast as we could.
Emilios, Fortes, and Jericho's looking at you. I have never felt more disgusted with myself than when I took those children sleeping from their beds and abducted them. I never, ever want to do that again.
And would you rather have them wake up in a house with the police running around, with their mother shot in the head, with the vision of their dead mother scarred into their memory for all their lives, instead of having them have a normal childhood, a normal life?
The authorities, the police, those first responders, that would have been their very, very first concern. They would have gone ahead and checked up on the children and make sure that most of the trauma that they were going to face would have been mitigated. They would have not shoved their dead mother's body into their faces. They would have not thrown them into the back of a moving car and forced to look at it as it bled.
Yes, but if it comes down to mitigating traumas, mind magic does things that psychologists cannot.
That might be true, but we did not have those particular abilities on call. We did not prepare those abilities by calling out to our allies beforehand.
Yes, because in case you did not notice, we are 3 mages trying to do the work of a whole chantry. We need our numbers. That's why I'm helping Jade to awaken. That's why I'm saying that we might need your friend over there, your orphan. And he might need us as much as we need him. That's why I insist on finding who else are the mages around, the young ones around, so we can have people to go to. We're not gonna bother Remy for each thing we do.
Like I said, you didn't have to take those children. I'm going to leave it there. You know where your skull is. You know where your precious skull is. You don't have to talk to me, because at this moment, I think you're only trying to convince yourself.
I asked you to fix it, not to use it in a ritual.
Plaster, glue.
Glue and plaster fixes things if you want wall decorations, not magical items.
You're going to make it a magical item. Fantastic. I'm very glad that we took those 5 extra minutes just so that you could create your own little magic item.
Some items bear a certain resonance. You need certain items for certain to convert into certain magical items. And it just so happens that some of us need a goddamn fresh skeleton. And why not take the one that was lying around?
Because of 5 minutes and a SWAT team, 2 helicopters, the entire NYPD crashing down on us.
Did it crash on us?
Yes, it did.
No,
and
it
we
didn't.
only passed through a needle.
Because we are mages of fate, and fate takes care of its agents.
You can't push fate or intervene that hard. It will snap at one point or another. It will snap.
No, reality snaps. Fate never snaps. Fate flows like it should flow.
Fate may flow, but it'll go ahead and flow away from you. You'll go ahead and disappear under its torrent. You go ahead and crash your head into the rocks of that particular river.
I don't know whether to hug you or slap you, Jericho. I'll get my skull back, and once I'm ready, and if I'm ready, I shall tell you what I need to do with it. Until then, no, it's not plaster and glue. It's finding someone that can actually fix it. Nimi just gets up on his feet, and says goodnight to Jericho. Goes over to the morgue, takes the skull, and goes back to his room, slamming the door behind him.
Leaving Jericho in his own place in one of the back rooms of the Thanatos chantry. Jericho goes ahead and takes a pen, goes ahead and writes down the name that Auntie Boo gave him. Simply says, now, why does Miss Boo want you dead? And with that, the scene will end.